Okay, so let's talk about AI, and in the world of AI, how data engineering is going to look like. Um, it's been around for some time. A lot of people are talking about it. Sometimes it's coming across as a threat. We just saw a lot of good content on ML ops, and what it takes. So much detail around a very good content and deck there. So here, we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about our story. So I'm going to take you on a story first. And we will talk about the story aspect and then how that impacts. And then we will land on to data world, or data land as I call it. And then towards the end, we will talk about how we reach this land of AI as well, and what that means, what are the challenges. So let's get started on this. We humans have always been a bunch of explorers. We started with exploring islands, right? We traveled around, we saw the territories, the terrains, and everything. And eventually, we moved on to the oceans. We started looking at what oceans have to offer, or what's there beyond oceans for that matter, right? We traveled a lot. And at some point, we reached space. We started talking about space as well. What's there? What's beyond that? So with all of this, as the context, right? We have islands, we have oceans, we have space. Just a very blanket, simple question. Where do you see the value and scale today? Anybody, or most of you? Is it islands, oceans, or space? What do you think? Anyone? No? Bit shy? It's of course space, right? It's to the level, the change, the movement, the motion is at the scale that we now refer it upon as space economy, right? So why is that? How is it something that we don't see where we have not been to, only few people have been to? We have evolved and created a full-blown economy out of it. And the gravity of the problem that we have called it a space economy itself. So there are a few things which makes us think that it's as big as that. One is that, of course, it's transformative. Think about the impact that space and space engineering and exploration has caused to the fields like security and weather and a few other industries. I'm pretty sure at some point our best favorite thing in Australia, and that is real estate, will also be jumping on the bandwagon and think about, okay, how do we find estates and farms in space, right? But more than that, there is also the possibilities of executing on it. There are a multitude of pathways to go about it. You can rent a rocket, or you can build your own rocket, right? The choices are there. The providers are there, basically. And lastly, despite the challenges, the reality is that there are endless possibilities, right? It's not about the technology and the outcomes to be explored. Even the possibilities are being explored right now, right? So that's how big a deal is. So a question, right? I know a lot of countries, a lot of regions have gone about the space exploration. There are organizations, it's still pretty much a government-funded programs mostly. There are a few private players as well. What's stopping us, right? What's stopping us from space? Why can't we all just be there, right? The challenge, other than money, of course, is gravity, right? It's not like hopping on a car, just going aboard and then reaching the space, right? The challenges are there, and gravity is a bigger issue there. So now let's jump on to land of data. Just keep that story in your mind somehow. Space, not seen by many, but we see the value, and we're exploring it. We're looking at the possibilities. We know and acknowledge that it's transformative in different ways, and we go with that. Now let's talk about something that we all love, data. That's the one thing that binds this whole room together, I think, including myself, right? So business runs on data. That's there. But more than that, there's something to be kind of unwired. Still foundational, but still, all the businesses who wants to do things in transformative way, they run apps. Apps do what? App produces or processes data, right? And when you have these different data sets there, the perspectives, the understanding, the expectations, and the business groups which comes on board and do things, they have different aspirations and understanding. And that leads to what? That leads to non-conformed, disjointed data. Finance talk a different language of data. Production talks a different language of data. Marketing will be looking at differently, and production team will be looking at differently, right? So that's where we, as the community, came about. We promised a data platform. We said, we will bring the conformance to this. We will create something which is going to be aligned and you can get value out of it. And business listened. And business said, yeah, that's fine. That's actually good. So business had that pull towards us. There is this central data platform, magical world. We can look into it. It has everything in one place. It's all conformed. It's all good quality. We can just consume it and we get the value out of it, right? That's been the pull. But the challenge is, it's not as simple as that, right? We have the conformance, but once the conformance has been established, when that central data model has been established, after that there are changes. And business expects to move at the pace at which it was moving earlier. It wants to move as fast as it can. Apps enable it, but the moment we bring on data platform and conformance, and singular point of view and everything, it becomes challenging, right? So there are challenges which kind of, are felt by the businesses, and they say, okay, we got good value out of it, and that was awesome. But I'm somehow not moving quickly enough now. I'm feeling there is something which is stopping us, or stopping me in particular. I'm talking on behalf of business. So they felt a bit of a pull, that there is a challenge, that we can't move quick enough. They understand the importance of it, right? And still, they can't move quick enough. And that's where the problem is. And which is quite akin to gravity, the thing that we talked about earlier. So let's call it gravity again, yeah? It's a needed force. It keeps us grounded. It keeps us going. It keeps us here, not floating in the air. But at the same time, it actually slows us down. Roll a dice or a ball, and it will stop because of gravity, right? And this is where the AI conversation is important. Now, I'm not talking and pitching importance of AI or criticality of AI and this and that and everything. No, I'm talking very specifically in context of what that means to us data engineers. So how do we, as engineers, go and approach and think and leverage AI? Is there something for us? Is it something that we have to produce to be relevant? Or is it something that we can use to be more productive, right? And that's where the conversation is about, how do we go and reach AI as such? And in particular, I want to focus on a few things. One is how it can be transformative for us as data technicians, how it can be used in the context of buy versus build mindset, right? Which is a lot akin to, do I rent it or do I build my own, right? And at the last, we will also talk about how the endless possibilities look like. How do I create endless possibilities? What is my role in that? So jump forward to this slide, and that is about how the transformative and the buy versus build looks like from Microsoft landscape. Again, I will not go into details of all of these, but just very quickly, a bit of a snippet to put that in perspective. The ones on the top, in the green, are the ones that you can buy off the shelf. right? You can just go and leverage that. There is a sales copilot. There is a security copilot. That's like copilots are built into it, and you can leverage that and you can go faster with the business. From data perspective as well, we do have a lot of things to absorb and consume from there. It's not just for the business. We can leverage these aspects for our own platforms, but let's keep that aside. There is also the build aspect, which is on the second grid. And we have things like GitHub Copilot, and we will see some action as well. We have things like Fabric and Power BI, which has AI embedded into some of the flows, and things which are coming about in coming months and weeks. And at the same time, we have Azure AI services as well. Again, it's not about pitching these services. It's about giving a perspective of how things are looking, at least from Microsoft lens, in the future. And we don't own the space. This is going. More and more players are playing this role. So if you think about it from the perspective of how we look at this, and I dropped in a word copilot. Now, autopilot, copilot, pilot, automation, everything automated, there is a lot of negative connotation that goes along with it. It's seen upon as a risk for individuals, for technicians, right? I just wanted to put that out. And this is something that Satya, he said, and I really like that code, not using that because I'm part of Microsoft, but really it kind of passes and the essence of what it is for us as technicians. And it's about, we are moving from autopilot era to copilot era of AI. Yeah? Quick show of hands if you don't mind. I want you to participate with me now. I'm sure you have flew in past few years, right? Show of hands if you have heard of word autopilot. We have, right? And you have been in the plane when autopilot you have been aware of, right? So think of the notions, think of the challenges, and how much we trust on a lot of autopilot things. Where we are heading with this as technicians is not in the range of, here is the machine and here is my control, you go and do what you want to do. It's actually reining in and going in the age of copilot, where we are not giving a control as such, but we are working with that. It's enabling us rather than taking over the whole pipeline, right? And that's the bigger shift. It's a very subtle shift, but the moment you use that, you can say, this is a big truck, but you know what, I can drive it. It's something like that, right? So think of the possibilities, and we'll jump onto that specifically as well. But think about the mind shift that you can have and work with when you, instead of thinking of tools, you think of creative assistant. Thinking of product specificity, you talk about cross-fitting. It's a bigger world, if you think about it. Rather than one specific language and creating your service endpoint for that very specific language, can you create multiple endpoints so that you have a wider spectrum of the market to cover and connect with you and work with you, right? It's a bit akin to that. Instead of providing data, how do you leverage the content generation side of things? ChatGPT is obviously going and making a lot of waves right now in the market. How do you leverage that in your pipelines, in data engineering pipelines, in machine learning pipelines, right? And rather than following the commands, how do you go and provide recommendations and make choices on those recommendations? So it's not about accepting as what the tool is coming back with, it's about making choices. Now let's pivot to the endless possibilities part, right? So we talked about space. We talked about the data, the land of data, where it's been good and where the challenges are. And now we're talking about in midst of conversing on reaching for AI and how that helps us and where the endless opportunities are. So with the endless opportunities, I will slightly pivot, and I want you to move with me as well. With the word possibilities, it's not just about possibilities. Somebody's there on the whiteboard and written out, these are the possibilities, and you say, yeah, that's fine. These are good opportunities. No. You discuss your possibilities, right? And how do you make them endless? You make them endless by looping through them continuously. Okay, this didn't work 6 months ago. Can it work now? Right? Think of that. So think of that conversation, and then let's move on to the discussion and the loop part. Yeah? So with this, with AI in particular, so let's talk about taking off. How do I take off with AI? How do I do it? All the conversation is good, Vikas, but how is it possible? First is talking about and discussing the possibilities. That's where you play a bigger role, because you can go as data engineers, as data technicians, you know your data better, you would know and understand your environment, the challenges that's there in the environment. You talk about what are the outcomes that business is seeking. What is the value focus that you can bring about, and talk to the business and make that happen. Make that happen how? By using the loop. Loop is technology. You can offload a lot of your work and guide the technology in a way so that it can loop through the dev, test, and delivery cycles. Right? Again, I'm not saying completely offload it and you go. No, you're not talking piece anymore. You actually talk and understand, and then make sure that the choices that AI is coming back with, the tooling that AI tooling is coming back with, you can make conscious call and subtle shifts. Those shuttles, very subtle shifts that I'm talking about, a few years ago, maybe last decade, it would have taken a month or 6 months. Now, those shifts can be made very, very quickly, and hence the point of loop over there. Yeah. Also talk about integration. Previously, integrating something in one place was a big enough challenge. Because you have these AI tooling, once you know the outcome and the solution for one stack, there is nothing stopping you from replicating the same stack on a different technology and make it available to your partners, to your ecosystem, to your vendors. So how do you operate with this? It's entirely up to you. And then also let's talk about being grounded on this as well. So when we talk about taking off, that's the bigger spectrum conversation, right? That's where we go to next. But at the same time, is gravity really a bad thing? Do you still need it? Of course we still need it, right? When I talk about being grounded, I mean talk about and think about the biases and some of the challenges that could be there because of AI, the way the technology is working today, and work towards it. One of the most critical conversations, and that I'm having almost throughout the year with my customers, for example, is talking about defining guardrails. Technology is one thing, innovation is one thing, but who defines the guardrails? What works, what doesn't work? What should be there and what should not be there? Those guardrails are defined by us, obviously in consultation with the business. So focusing there, that requires discussion, that requires negotiation, that requires conversations, fights, even for that matter. But once that clarity has been established, how do you go and execute on that? You don't trigger another 6-month or a 6-year program. You actually can go and loop through quickly with technology, with the AI enablement that you can work with. And that's where the components like responsible AI and the principles, the automation that's available, that can be leveraged. Yeah? So it's not as a separate piece. It has to be brought in, because that's how you can focus more on the outcomes and get the things delivered at the same time. And lastly, around controls and policies as well, right? All of this that we talked about, end of day, it has to be understood, okay, what sort of controls we want to bring in. GDPR, I think there was a mention of GDPR earlier in the previous session. GDPR has a massive book of controls. All of them apply to you? Or do you need to apply them plus something else, right? Is your industry really into that? Are you playing a particular role? Are you playing the entire of the chain of food chain of GDPR? How does that work? These are the choices that works and can be brought in. Let's jump onto some of the examples now, how this is working. So I've just got some screen grab going on for GitHub. This is one of the GitHub Copilot, right? So when you talk about GitHub Copilot, imagine as if there is a second pair of hands working alongside with you. Not instead of you, but alongside with you. Think pair programming in that way. That's the one key aspect. Another thing to think about is that it's a lot contextual. It's not generating everything off the shelf. Yep. Yeah, sure, thanks. So it's not generating everything off the shelf. It's basically looking at what you have produced in past, what you're trying to achieve, and you can see that there is a slight mention of this is what I'm thinking of doing with this code and with this function, and GitHub Copilot is able to generate that code for you. Again, the choice is yours. Do you want to tune that further? Do you want to accept it? You can delete it, no problem, right? Nobody gets offended by that, right? So that's the another part. And then curvature. What is your turn? What is the change of pace of the change that you want to bring in? If you acquire any organization, you want to bring in their whole stack aligned with your stack, how does that work? Today, it takes a lot of time. With Copilot, it can be fast-tracked. Another aspect that we have going right now is Microsoft Fabric, right? With this, there is a lot of unification. And what does unification does? It actually brings a lot of different aspects of possible pathways of your data and consumption of the data on one platform that you can centrally control, centrally manage, and centrally deliver, right? And that is where the advantage is. So you can really bring that on. From governance perspective, again, that agile plus governance side of things, that can really be helped by keeping it one place. And by using those AI controls, that can really be helpful. And of course, it's actually created and delivered for age of AI. From collection through to delivery, there are AI enablements which are through and through in this product that you can leverage depending on your stage. Again, the choice is with you to think about what you want to leverage, what you want to retain, and then leverage that so that you can go fast. Yeah? So that's been my very short and precise story. I wanted to just keep it very simple. Happy to take any questions. There are certain links that I've shared as well for you to check out. They are shortened up just so they come all nicely on screen, but happy to take any questions. We do have some time, right? Awesome.